Hello, good morning, and welcome to Thoughts and Updates for this week. I am out in the car because I've taken Leila to her work at McDonald's. Had an opportunity to chat through what would happen as she asked if McDonald's was only open 9 to 5 and how different it would be in terms of being an employee there. And made me think about the new norm that we're supposed to be getting at some point in terms of not only when we come out of COVID-19, but how we respond to a lot of it. And it seems as though that at the moment is a little lost as we hit what is being called the second wave. And certainly in Scotland, we are, as people will know who've seen this every week, in a more severe lockdown in certain areas than others. And in England, that's happening round places like Liverpool, Manchester, the North East, where there are hotspots. Northern Ireland has shut schools and gone into a fairly severe lockdown, probably the most severe at the moment in the United Kingdom and all the nations of the United Kingdom, whilst Wales have put in tougher sanctions. So again, we're facing an uncertain future based upon what is happening out there. And sitting talking to Leila this morning, it became quite kind of obvious that the young as well as the older are beginning to think about what comes at the end of this. How do we readjust? Do we go back to the way it was before? And certainly for some companies, it would appear that that's exactly what's happening. And in the arts in particular, there are going to be massive changes. There's no way on this earth that many arts organisations are going to see the end of this. In football as well, many football clubs are talking of about at least 6 within the Championship in England folding before Christmas if crowds are not even in a limited way allowed in. And of course, that's quite poignant for people like myself who are huge football fans, because yesterday was the start of the Championship League 1, League 2 competition within Scotland, and Ayr United beat Queen of the South 2-1 at home. No crowd, very first time that happened. It's the Old Firm yesterday, no crowd, first time that's ever happened with Celtic and Rangers. A 2-0 win for Rangers. These are mere bagatelle, little things. But the problem, of course, is in terms both of the mental health and indeed of the employment of many, many people within both industries, sport and the arts. They're vital. Not just turnstile operators, people who work backstage, but ancillary businesses who depend upon these organisations for their livelihoods. And we found that particularly in Scotland, when the closure of the pits and heavy industry happened, that it wasn't just the factory, the shipyard, the pit that closed. It was the newsagents, it was the little shops making rolls, it was the bakeries, it was the ancillary businesses that really depended upon the people walking to work in the morning, popping in, buying what they needed in order to allow them to trade and to continue to employ the Saturday girl, the Saturday paper boy, the whatever, people in a milk run and so on. All of these people required and needed some kind of employment. A few years back, when I was working in East Ayrshire, one of the economic parts of the council came out with a plan, and it said that what it needed, this area of massive deprivation and really bad employability, what they required was heavy industry. They required a factory. They required something in the region of 13,500 new jobs. And without that, you were not going to get that part of the world into the average earnings and indeed living standards of the rest of the country. Now, that's a massive amount of jobs. And there's not a benevolent industrialist out there who's going to suddenly go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this for the benefit of my entire community that I don't know, haven't been involved with or whatever. I'm just going to put that there. We're going to employ everybody and everyone's going to be hunky-dory. So who does it? New dawn. How do we achieve that? So that over, this week has been a fascinating week, incredibly fascinating week. And for my friends over in America, the fightback is on. Two things that have come out of this week and one that's a worry. The two things that have come out is in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, who is the New Zealand Prime Minister, has won in a landslide, a woman who has handled the COVID-19 crisis probably better than most. And once again, women at the top seem to be doing it right, and we've got a little bit of that going on in the United Kingdom as people are looking at Nicola Sturgeon and saying she's doing well under the COVID-19 pandemic and handling well, perhaps not as effectively as in New Zealand, but she's tethered to the tombstone of Westminster, where the boy down the road, our Prime Minister, is not doing so well. Also, in Greece, New Dawn, a neo-fascist party, an ultra-right party, has been declared a criminal organisation. Many of their leaders are now under arrest and indeed facing prison sentences for things from murder right down to more trivial offences. Now, this is a trial that's going on for many years. This was a party within the Greek democratic system that at one point was third. And so therefore this is a massive, massive kick in the teeth for the alt-right in Europe, the alt-right across the whole of the world. On top of that, what it means for European countries as we go into 2021 is that they need to stop pandering to these people, because we are now beginning to see that people are waking up. So President Macron of France, who is once again on the anti-Islamist pathway, should retreat, fall back. France is a country which has banned the hijab, banned face coverings, ironically, for religious reasons. And I was talking to one of my tutees, Ariba, this week, who is a Pakistani Muslim, and just talking about how terrible and awful that ban actually is, because it is discriminatory. I would love to see the number of people who have been involved in terrorist activities who have worn either the burqa or the hijab within France. And that is not to diminish what happened over the last couple of days, which is that a teacher was beheaded in Paris by what we believe was a radical Islamicist, because the teacher used cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad in his class in order to discuss freedom of speech. I have been off my work this week, a bit of a holiday, but I've also been writing this week, which has been good. So this week, the things that I've managed to cover have included, for Ringside Reports, a look at Maxie Hughes. Mr. Trump this week hits the trail, and I have included now not only Agent Orange, but a new aide-de-camp, Orange Aid, not called cool for reasons that you might know and understand, for the Scottish Football Supporters Association. I have put in praise what has happened with the Scottish national team, even though the manager is former Killie. It's a tough life. And a certain Mr. Gerrard gets upset at his local bowling club, so look out for them coming up. Boxing has been turned upside down. Not only young Laws last night lost, indeed so did Cass Ashfaq lose as well. Both convincingly. Lewis Ritson got a decision he didn't deserve, and overnight my particularly favourite boxer of all, Vasyl Lomachenko, has lost his crown. Who predicted it? Tyson Fury did. He said Lomachenko was not going to beat Lopez. Eddie Hearn said that Lomachenko would win every round, and I suggested in my column that maybe he wouldn't, and he didn't. I also this week have been listening to a few things which I think are really kind of important in the scheme of things artistically. The first was Where is George Gibney? On BBC iPlayer. This is about a coach in Ireland who abused many of the charges he was responsible for, an Olympic level coach who then went on the run, and the last time he was caught up with, he was in Florida, certainly in America, and the two intrepid Irish reporters are very listenable to, and this is a twisty and a turny kind of narrative that is really difficult to listen to, but also very, very important. Also this week I watched a wee serial called Mrs. Wilson on BBC iPlayer. True story. I'm not going to go any further, but it was a real delight. An amazing story, well worth the telling, where the principal actress is playing her own grandmother. So worth a look. The arts this week filled with a lot of really interesting stuff. Banksy has claimed a mural which Itchy, another street artist, says was his. There's a bit of needle between the two of them from the past. Itchy had gone and drawn a red nose and one of Banksy's reindeers, and I think it was in Birmingham, in a previous kind of spat between the two. Be interesting to see how that one pans out. Also, what's been interesting is that the arts have again come up with a cracking idea, Puppet's Epic Walk, where they're going to take this giant puppet of a 9-year-old refugee girl from Syria to the United Kingdom. It's the creators of the Puppets for Warhorse have come up with this as an idea, and they're moving her from Syria on this massive walk. If that doesn't bring attention to the plights of refugees through the countries that it visits, I don't know what will. It's something in the region of about 9 foot tall, so it's going to take a lot of coordination in order to get it anywhere. And we've seen a lot of these giant puppets recently, particularly I think in Manchester and the festival down there, and in Liverpool, going through the cities. So there's a presence. There's certainly a lot of discussion at the moment in terms of the handouts and the feeding of the arts from the central government pot. Some who have not received money having a difficult time and probably going to fold. Those that have received money being quite delighted obviously about it, and quite rightly so, because hopefully that will secure their future and the jobs of people who work there. Although freelancers, once again, I'm very concerned about, not least because I've got a member of our family who is one. However, he has managed to get some work from the National Theatre of Scotland in terms of doing some translation work into BSL. All good. So I end with something which it's an RIP. Dave Toole, an artist I never saw, I don't believe, and one whose death over the last few days has gone mainly unnoticed, which I think is a massive disappointment, because Dave Toole had his legs amputated at 18 months old. He is a dancer, a tremendous member of the disabled arts scene. He was an MBE, awarded for his services to the cultural industry, and also a major part of the Olympics opening, where he danced, and highly noticeable. If he's noticeable for the type of ceremony that is the best of Britain, then he should be noticeable for his loss as being an example to the rest of Britain, and that is massively unfortunate. So Dave Toole, rest in peace, young man. He was close to about my age. Don't know why or how he died. That is important in any way, shape or form. But that we've lost an artist who the disabled arts community have valued to this extent. EJ put up a message. She worked with him times past. So did Robert Softly Gale, both in Facebook. So mark his passing and notice that he made a tremendous contribution, not just to the arts, but also to the way in which disabled people are viewed, and indeed the hopes and aspirations of those young disabled artists, hopefully, will be inspired by his life and his abilities, because getting a chance to go back and look at some of his work that's online, I can certainly put my hand up and say I miss something pretty special. So with that in mind, I'll leave you with a quote that I noticed this week in one of the magazines that I do subscribe to, from Noel Coward, who said, "Well, you live and learn. Then of course you die and forget it all. So till next week, don't forget. Bye for now."